Hello, amazing fourth graders. We are here for lesson 6.8. It is the last lesson in this chapter. Okay, so we're going to be covering some of the concepts from previous lessons to help you today. The title of today's lesson is Comparing and Ordering Fractions. So your I can statement is I can compare and order fractions. Now, there are some ways we've learned in previous lessons. Maybe you remember them using the benchmark, 1/2. We've also found a common denominator, okay? And you may have learned how to compare using the numerator. So if we were to compare 1/2 with 3/4, we have 3/4 here on the number line, and we know that 2/4 is an equivalent fraction to 1/2. So we know that 1/2 is less than 3/4, or if we say it the other way, that 3/4 is greater than 1/2. Now, we've also compared fractions using common denominators. So right here, if we were to compare 2/5 and 1/3, we need to take the denominator and find a common multiple. When we did that, we'd find the common denominator of 15. So we would make an equivalent fraction using that denominator. So 2/5 becomes 6/15, and 1/3 becomes 5/15. Then we can compare the numerator. 6/15 is greater than 5/15, so 2/5 is greater than 1/3. Now, we could use those strategies to help us put the fractions in order from least to greatest. So let's go ahead and let's compare and order fractions. Now remember, these fractions that you just saw, we're going to be writing them in order from least to greatest. We have 7/8, 3/4, and 1/5. You can use benchmarks, you can use common denominators, you can even just think about it or use fraction tiles. So if I were to think about this, if I had a pizza that had 7 out of 8 slices, that's the majority of the pizza. If I had a pizza with 3 out of 4 slices, that's the majority of the pizza. But if I had 1 out of 5 slices, well, that's not the majority of the pizza. So I'm going to guess that this is probably the smallest fraction. But let me use common denominators in order and find a common denominator so I can compare them and put them in the proper order. In order to find common denominators from the previous lesson, you have to use the denominators. So I have an 8 in the denominator, a 4 in the denominator, and a 5 in the denominator. I have to find a common multiple of my denominator. So 8, 16, 24. Let's just stop right there. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Let's stop right there just for a moment. 5, 10, 15, 20. 20 is a common multiple of 4 and 5, but not of 8. So I have to keep going. 25, 30, 35, and 40. Let's keep going. So 24, 40, I know 4 times 10 will get me to 40. So let's keep going until I get to 40. 28, 32, 36, and 40. 24, multiples of 8, 32, and 40. Okay, so my common multiple is going to be 40. Just like we did in a previous lesson, you take 7/8, the new denominator becomes 40. 8 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is equal to 40. So anything we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So 7 times 5 becomes 35. See how 35 out of 40, that's still the majority of that fraction or of that pizza. Now, if you have 3/4, and we're going to find a common denominator of 40. Well, 4 times 10 gave me 40. So 3 times 10, anything we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator, and that becomes 30. So now I can see that this majority, 7/8, is larger than this majority if I compare these using common denominators. All right, but let me make sure that 1/5 is the smallest. So 40 is my common denominator. 5 times 8 equals 40. 1 times 8 equals 8. And just as I suspected, it is that. So if I want to compare these, well, 7/8 is greater than 3/4 because 35 is greater than 30. 7/8 is greater than 1/5 because 35 is greater than 8. And 3/4 is greater than 1/5 because 30 is greater than 8. So if I were to compare them, I could use my comparison symbols, greater than, less than, or equal to. But if I want to list the fractions in order from least to greatest, well, I'd have to take the smallest amount. So the least would be 1/5, then 3/4, then 7/8. So that's how I list these fractions in order from least to greatest. Now I have a second question for you that you'll see on your quick check today. Write the fraction with the greatest value. So I want you in your math notebook to take a moment and write the fraction with the greatest value. And the fraction with the greatest value, can I get a drum roll, please? It is 7/8. So what I want you to do next is I want you to go ahead and give comparing and ordering this next set of fractions. So I want you to put them in order from least to greatest. So you have 1/3, 3/5, and 6/12. And I also want you to write the fraction with the greatest value, just like I did right here. Go ahead and pause the video and put these in order from least to greatest and write the fraction with the greatest value. Okay. Thank you for pausing the video. Let's take a look at how you did. Now, if you use the common denominators, it should have looked like this. It's kind of tricky, right? Finding a common denominator. So I like to think, take your biggest denominator and think, what are some numbers that 3 can multiply by, that 5 can multiply by, that 12 can multiply, that they all have in common. So if you listed out all your multiples like I did, 60 is your common multiple, so it becomes your common denominator. So 3 times 2 gives me 6, so 3 times 20 is 60. 1 times 20 becomes 20. 5 times, and I had it 5 times 10 gives me 50. 11 and 12 gives me 60. 3 times 12 is 36. 12 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 helps to know your math facts. 6 times 5 is 30, okay? So it's easy to see right here that our fraction with the greatest value is 3/5. And if we were to put these fractions in order from least to greatest, it would go 1/3, 6/12, and 3/5. Now I also want to show how you could compare this to your benchmark, 1/2. So if you had 1/3, 1/2 is here. We know that 1/3 is less than 1/2. For 3/5, 1/2 is here. 3/5 is greater than 1/2. And this example would have been perfect to use benchmark fractions because 6/12 is exactly 1/2. So because 1/3 is less than 1/2, I could put these in order from 1/3 to 6/12 to 3/5. Okay. Now, which of these fractions has the greatest value? It is 3/5. All right. Now, have an amazing Osprey day.